from ATV Studios in Washington, D.C. This is Politics Now.
What a show we have for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We have all of our thanks to give to our silly, bickering Congress who makes tonight's show possible. And of course, in conjunction with the quite interesting 2008 presidential campaign season. On tonight's broadcast, Bharat has Jenny Leland on the couch to talk to her about her involvement in the Clinton campaign, followed by Dan Shorts and Ben Shore in our On the Issues segment to discuss Guantanamo Bay. And finally, Bharat will lead us out with the last word, which you'll just have to wait to hear.
Yes, leave them on the edge of their seats. So in the headlines this week, our top story, the Potomac primaries. Senator Barack Obama swept Maryland, Virginia, and D.C., and as a result, an embattled Hillary Clinton turned her attention toward Texas and Ohio this week. Now, conventional wisdom suggests the senator needs both victories in order to remain competitive in this contest for the Democratic nomination. Those primaries will be held on March 4th.
I think that's really interesting because a lot of people have been saying there could be such a wide margin in these states coming up and it still won't matter.
No, that's true.
As far as declaring an actual winner.
No, it's true. And the stakes couldn't be higher for her. I mean, I did hear, obviously, the Clinton campaign talking about how they don't want to be called inevitably failed, just like the Obama campaign rejected her sort of aura of inevitability earlier on. But it certainly is, it's a huge change in the dynamic.
I think her last hope's going to come down to those superdelegates erring on her side more so.
That is true. But if they jump the fence, it's over. So it's also worth noting that on the same day, on March 4th, the great state of Rhode Island holds its presidential primary. My home state votes reliably Democratic at the national level, so the Republican primary there is hardly worth watching. But the Democratic contest could be interesting. Barack Obama picked up the endorsement of popular former Senator Link Chafee this week. He's already been endorsed by Congressman Patrick Kennedy right here at AU. And meanwhile, Hillary has the endorsement of Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and Congressman James Langevin. So it's a battle in the Ocean State on March 4th.
And like you said, Graham, no one really cares. But what a harsh reality that there's actually going to be more people at the convention than residents of your state.
But they're the greatest Americans in America, Nick.
The Rhode Islanders.
Rhode Island. That's right.
I'll have to come visit one day if I can find it. On the Republican side of the Potomac primary, John McCain won all 3 states. Though it was very close in Virginia, once again, Mike Huckabee surprised a lot of people by getting out the votes he did. But it is safe at this point to officially say, and I say this with deep regret,
I know you do,
that it is mathematically impossible for the governor to win the delegate contest, despite his self-proclaimed PhD in miracles or something like that. Interestingly enough, though, yesterday he took a Huck-a-vacation to the Cayman Islands for a fundraiser. It is also worth noting that Mitt Romney on Thursday threw his support behind John McAmnesty, though I don't think he called him that this time at least.
No, he did.
I'll tell you, that Massachusetts governor really put himself out on a limb to hold true to what he thinks and who he supports. I mean, endorsing a man the day after he essentially solidifies the Republican nod is quite risky. Props to the governor. Your thoughts, Mr. Vise?
I think this is an indication. I was listening to one commentator who said that he sees in Mitt Romney right now what he saw in Ronald Reagan 4 years before Ronald Reagan was elected. Now, I'm certainly not going to make the Reagan-Romney comparison, but I do think that he's running again, and I think that this is an example of him sort of kowtowing to the Republican base.
He's clearly posturing himself the best he can.
Yeah.
But besides the huckster, and speaking of impossibilities, Graham, tell us about that guy no one knows about from that state no one goes to.
I don't know. I mean, former Alaska Senator Mike Gravel is technically still competing for the Democratic presidential nomination, although no one knows why. I mean, I feel like he's actually certifiably, I mean, I don't know if he's certifiably insane.
No. But I have to tell you, he wins the award for best political campaign commercial. The stone in the water.
It makes no sense. Makes absolutely no sense.
It's not supposed to.
Yeah.
It's supposed to remember it. Yeah. Well, that's not the only strange thing happening in politics last week. On Thursday, scores of House Republicans had a temper tantrum and marched out of the chambers before a vote was held to authorize criminal and civil contempt proceedings against White House Chief of Staff Josh Bolten and former White House counsel Harriet Miers. For failing to comply with the Judiciary Committee subpoenas. They protested the priority of Speaker Pelosi to have this debate and vote instead of debate and vote on the FISA Act, which was set to expire that same day. The day before, the House failed a bill which would give retroactive immunity to telecom companies who cooperated with the government's warrantless eavesdropping programs following 9/11. White House spokesman Dana Perino commented the following, quote, "The American people will find it baffling that on the day that the House leaders are trying to put off passing critical legislation to keep us safe from the threat of foreign terrorists overseas, they are spending scarce time to become the first Congress in history to bring contempt charges against a president's chief of staff and lawyer."
How do you feel about Dana? I miss Tony. Perfect. Could be perfectly
That's
honest.
besides the point. I'm more outraged at the fact that our Congress is spending time on these political games and not renewing FISA, which is critical
Yeah.
to protecting us from terrorists.
I think there's a little posturing going on. I mean, obviously there's a political reason for why they're
Right now,
doing it.
FISA is expired. Our intelligence community is crippled by this to an extent.
Well, I hear your concerns, but you know what? I want to talk about more debate on counterterrorism on the Hill last week. Nick, on Wednesday, the Senate passed a bill 51 to 45 to ban the CIA and other intelligence agencies from using aggressive interrogation techniques such as waterboarding. Testifying last week, CIA Director General Michael Hayden said for the first time publicly that the agency used waterboarding against 3 prisoners, but said it has not occurred since 2003. Now, Senator Ted Kennedy, had this to say: "Torture is a defining issue, and it's clear that under the Bush administration we have lost our way." Now, this is the story. John McCain voted against the ban.
He's been railing against the United States' use of torture and even advanced or coercive interrogation
understandably
techniques.
so, given his
Understandably so, but I think he's really trying to play to the conservative base with this vote. It was interesting that we essentially 3 votes last week in Congress are taking tools out of the hands of our intelligence community needed to fight this war on terror. And I find that
Except for the
appalling.
fact that the United States, many believe, should not engage in torture. And waterboarding has largely been defined as torture. Certainly, Senator John McCain used to say that it was torture, and I think that it is to the credit of those arguing against waterboarding that they're doing so. And I feel bad for Senator McCain that he's having to sort of reverse course and clearly compromise a moral principle.
It doesn't lend much credibility to him.
It does not.
And this
You know
whole
who-
thing
you know
doesn't
whose
lend
credit-
credibility to Congress.
Well,
Let me
that's
tell you
true.
that.
In our last minute of the headliners, we're going to do something we call rapid fire. Just the headlines, just the facts, no talking. Nick, why don't you start us off?
Well, Graham, it was a show of love from the Middle East on Thursday. Saudi Arabia outlawed the public display of the color red on Valentine's Day as a celebration of this non-Muslim holiday is sacrilegious and against the law.
Patty Doyle and Mike Henry, 2 top Clinton campaign staffers, stepped down recently as the campaign underwent some course adjustments in light of Obama's 7-7 record in the latest primary races. The campaign also lashed out against an MSNBC reporter who stated that Chelsea Clinton was being pimped out. Now, I don't think that's exactly what the phrasing was. It was something like, you know, they're pimping her out.
Yeah, they wouldn't subject her to the media, but she's also courting the superdelegates, which they
Right.
found a little double standard.
Yeah.
But speaking of pimps, no surprise to most of us, Wednesday, when the Senate Ethics Committee said that Senator Larry Craig acted improperly in the men's room and brought discredit to the Senate.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
This is lightning round.
President Bush last week made no apologies for keeping our troops out of Darfur in Sudan. While he does recognize it as a genocide, he said he is committed to ending the genocide in other ways, such as engaging in discussions with the Chinese president.
And lastly, many of you wrote to us asking why the flag on the quad was at half-staff for the 2 days last week. Well, that was keeping with the tradition when a member of Congress passes away. Last week, Tom Lantos of California, a Holocaust survivor, lost his life in a battle of cancer. I would encourage you to continue sending us emails to the address, which is politicsnow@auatv.com.
Well, that wraps things up here for the headliners on Politics Now. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Bharat will have a guest on his segment, The Horse Race. Be right back.